Hi, guys, and welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today, I am with my friend who's going to tell us about her restored marriage after being on the brink of divorce. Marina is a mom of three, and she's been married for 14 years. She's been a homeschooling mom and runs the nonprofit organization Sons and Daughters. And I'm hoping to hear more about that at the end. So, Marina, hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
So glad you're here. So, yeah, we do tend to laugh. So, so that's what's going to be happening. I'm afraid like that my entire podcast is me laughing and I can't help it. Um, even during some really deep, dark stuff. It's just the way it is. So today we're going to be talking about, your restored marriage after being on the brink of divorce, and so interesting what you have to say. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this was I think there's lots of people who have been at this place, maybe not necessarily at the brink of divorce, but in a place where you say, like, I don't really want to talk to anyone about this, and I'm kind of suffering in silence. And that's why I started this podcast, was to talk about those stories that are really hard to talk about. So let's just talk about it to the world.
Hey, why not just put it out there?
That's right. Well, I know that your story is going to help others. So let's start wherever you feel like starting. So
Yeah,
what caused you to get there? Let's just
well,
go
first
in
I
there.
want to say, and
Yes.
you made a good point, is it's easier to talk about it when you know that like your past is your past and you've
Yeah.
died to yourself, and so
Yeah.
my husband and I, when we talked about like telling our story, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't know I was going to come on this or that you would interview me. So thank you.
You're
But
welcome.
that because it is our past and because we were attacked in this area of marriage, and how many people like we'd be blessed by hearing their story and
Yeah.
hearing the kind of the end of it, or like we're in the middle of the restoration. And so
Right.
that's what I want to do with the stories, that let other people know that it is possible, because you do see divorce, and not that everybody should or shouldn't. But
Right.
this is our story. It was
Yeah.
our marriage restored, and this is where it is. So we're
Okay.
dead to that to those people.
Yes, exactly. And so
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that everybody not everybody knows how the sausage is made, right? Like how everything came to be, or because I was on the brink of divorce a couple of times, and then the last time it went through, but but nobody sees the 33 years of trying and all those things. So those are some of the things we're going to talk about with how you guys got by, what happened to you guys, and all those things. So
Yeah.
tell us your story.
Oh, okay. So today is actually our 14-year anniversary. We made it.
Yay.
My goodness. I know. So my husband and I met when we were in college, and it was kind of like this online thing at the time, highfive.com. It was like
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, it was like really corny, because I ask everybody, like, or tell everybody, and they're like, well, you have no idea. So we're like, well,
Yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about.
were we the only ones on there? It's so weird. And how do we find it? But
Right.
so we started like on there, but I was already going to that university.
Okay.
And so we met up, we were just like hanging out. We weren't really like interested in each other, just hanging out as friends. But then over over time, he had asked me to be his girlfriend. Well, when I went to Bible college, one thing really stood out to me that they said, marry somebody who has your vision, or that will partner with
Okay.
you or support your vision, right?
Uh-huh.
And so when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I asked him one thing. I said, what is your vision? And on the count of three, like we're gonna say like what it is. It's
Okay.
it's a super really corny thing. And we had already talked about this a little bit. So don't be like, oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talked about this, but I was like, one, two, three. And he said a girl's or a boy's home. And I said a girl's home. And
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, okay. Like, how many people are you going to find that are really going to want to do the same thing as you? Right.
Right.
And my parents did kind of the same thing in ministry. They were pastors, right?
Uh-huh.
But they weren't like, they didn't work together really well. Like, my dad kind of wanted to be the background of things, and my mom was like the preacher, um,
Okay.
just really loud, powerful, and very social, like
Mm-hmm.
me. And so I was like, no, I need to have my husband do the same thing as me.
Mhm.
So we dated. We actually talked about our ministry way back then. We only knew the name. He was like, I got this name. And this was years ago, right?
Okay.
15, 16, whatever years ago.
Right.
And so as we started dating, there was no, like, you do the whole honeymoon dating part. You don't talk
Yeah.
about
No.
your past. We did a little bit, but you don't talk about how or even think of how that's going to affect you, right?
Well, I mean, how old were you guys when you guys got together?
23,
Yeah.
22,
I
you
don't
know,
remember ever having a conversation with my boyfriend at the time saying like, okay, what's your past like? I mean, I don't
and
know.
how is this going to affect us in 10,
How will
15
this
years?
affect us later in life? Yeah, I never thought about that.
You don't. And at the end, we're going to circle back around to that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that is one thing that I kick myself for now. And you're like, oh, we should have. But when we talk about our past, it was kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Oh, I'm so sorry. But
Yeah.
there was never any like, okay, when we get married and we have children, we need to talk about this. Um,
Right.
so there was a sort of like hesitancy in me like wanting to marry him. And a lot of people will say, like, how do you know this is a person you're supposed to marry? And
Right.
the answers are so here's the part where is a little confusing for marriage. A lot of I'm around a lot of girls that are marrying earlier now,
Okay.
and I'm
Okay.
always like, did you do counseling? Did you talk about these things? Did you
Right.
pray
Right.
about these things? And you really don't think about it. And the younger you are, the more like naive you are to this
Yeah.
person or do anything like this to me, right?
Right.
And so there was kind of like I guess you call it like a cold feet, but I didn't understand. I just knew that there was like potential in this person and that we were going to do something so big together.
Okay.
Right. So I'm a visionary, I'm a dreamer. So I
Hmm.
saw the dream.
Right.
And this whole time he was like, I'm going to be an officer and we're going to be
Right.
married and have kids and have the house. And, the man is thinking about what he can provide and how
Right.
good family is going to look. Right. And so 2 days before we went to Florida to go get married, we got married on a cruise ship. So we flew our family out there and there was going to be like 70 people coming, right, on
Okay.
this
Hmm.
cruise ship. Um, 2 days before we went to Florida to get married, we were driving from my parents lived an hour away. So I had packed all my stuff to move into his mom's house. We were just going to be there for a little bit. And I look on his phone. Well, I go to his phone because I don't know what I was looking for, but this message pops up from this email and it says,
Oh, geez.
it was actually from him. And he was like, hey, had a lot of fun. That was great. Thank you for coming out. I had no idea what it was,
Oh, geez.
the context of it. And he signed off e-money. And I'd heard him say that a couple of times. It was like this basketball thing. And my heart just like sunk into my
Yeah.
stomach. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know that feeling.
Yeah.
Everything just sunk. I had not experienced that before, really. And I just felt like I needed to like have him pull over. So I was like, can you just like pull over? We're in the middle of the highway. There just
Okay.
happens to be like this furniture store. I think Ashley's in the middle of nowhere. And he pulls over and I like lure him out, uh, act like I'm gonna
Lure him out of the car.
lure him out, where I'm just
Oh
like,
my God.
somehow I was like, I have your phone. I don't know. I was like, my stomach hurts. And I go out there and he kind of follows me out. The car is on. And and then I just like, I stand on this bench. There was this bench out in the middle of like this grass area with trees.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
stand on the bench and I throw his phone into the middle of nowhere. And I jump on his back and I just start like kind of just going at it. Right. And
Oh my
I'm
gosh. You start
embarrassed to
wailing.
say it. Yes, a total like a 20 something
Yeah.
response, right?
Reaction. Yeah.
Reaction. And then I run to the car and I get in the car and I close the doors and I take off.
Oh my gosh.
It's so we can laugh about this now because I'm like,
Right. because he's come from there, so he's alive.
Yeah. He's, and I didn't think about anything. I drove home, got all of my stuff and was walking up the stairs. His mother is sitting outside of the door, kind of in the living room. And she's like this picture of this wonderful grandma who's just on this like rocking chair. And it's like a movie scene. Like she's just so peaceful and calm.
Yeah.
And I just love that about her. But she looks at me and she's like, don't leave, Marina, don't leave.
Oh my.
And I was like, you want to tell them everything, but this is, now I understand, but this is her son. Like, how could I possibly say anything that would make her believe me, or to make her believe that this was her son? Because I didn't even know everything at that time. And she said, and I was like, Mom, I cannot stay. I can't stay. And she said, he worships the ground like you walk on. And I was like, now I know, yes, he does. But at the time I was like, no, he didn't.
You don't even know.
That wasn't the only ground. No.
Oh my gosh.
But,
well, I want to ask you, did you see any other signs before that there was anything going on, or that maybe that you ignored, or?
Oh, completely. And that's really where there was a healing process. Even throughout these years, there was a time where I was like, I was thinking I had to forgive, like it was him. And that was a hard part. That was a hard place to forgive him because of what he did to me. Mm-hmm. I then had to go into this place of forgiving myself.
Oh yeah.
Because I was constantly telling myself, like, why did you do that? You saw that happening. Mm-hmm. What there were so many, in the term like red flags, I didn't start hearing until like a couple of years ago. Right. And so I was like, now I could put it into words, like there were so many red flags, but I ignored them. And I understood later with, through therapy and the psychology of it, of why I did ignore those red flags. But there were times where he would come over and this was like, it was really weird because I wasn't looking for things. I wasn't I dealt with insecurity, but I wasn't like, okay, today I'm going to look through his phone and go through all the messages. It was so weird and like supernatural, I would say, that it would like pop up on the phone whenever I would get it, like he'd ask me to do something or I'd pick it up, whatever.
Right.
And there were times where it was like 2 times where he'd come over to my family's house and I would like wake up in the middle of the night and it was like 3 a.m. and I would just hear like check the phone. And I honestly cannot tell you. And I know it sounds really like woo-woo, but it would really like pop up. And it was like, some people would say the universe, but I'd say like in my faith, we believe that like God shows you things, and it would come up on my screen. And that's where I recognize that stomach drop. Right. Yeah. But it was a feeling that like there was betrayal. Mm-hmm. But then after the second or third time, I would confront him, right? But there was always like a forgiveness, or like we're just gonna sweep it under the rug. Like,
oh geez,
he's not gonna do that again, right? Now I understand like there's a deeper therapy or a deeper knowing to what that really is, right? But as a 20-year-old, you're just gonna ignore that. Right. And nobody talks to you about that. So when we got married, it was like, let's talk to the pastor one time and we're good. All right. Let's go.
Yes, exactly. I don't think they dig really deep unless you do a whole class or something. But even then, so he survived being in the wilderness. How did he get home?
Yeah.
After you abandoned him there.
I mean, I assume he went into the furniture store and calls. There was because there was a humility, I don't know how someone would act after that. There was a confrontation, there was a humility, there was like, no, there was an explanation, and of course, I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're forgiven. And so we went to go get married. We went to Orlando, did just the whole wedding thing. And there was sort of like, there was a grace. I can't explain it, but there was like, when we got married, it
Mhm.
was like, okay, let's kind of like put that behind. Let's maybe bring it up in 10 years. Like,
We'll put a pin in this.
we're gonna bookmark this
Look,
and
it's funny now, but listen, these are things that many of us do, right? I'm sure people are resonating with this. It's not like I lasted 33 years in my marriage without doing some of this, okay? We'll get back to that. We'll put a pin in
we'll
that.
get, yeah. Oh, hey, remember this? And this is where, and this is why I think, like, when I tell my story, I don't want to, a lot of people that go through things like similar that I hear,
Yeah.
there's usually like infidelity. Like,
Okay.
there was never an infidelity in my marriage.
Okay.
I didn't know the difference. I
Right.
felt like if that had happened, that's what it would have felt like. To
Yeah.
me, it was just as bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when people tell me their stories, I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But so we get back from Orlando, from getting married, and it's supposed to be like the honeymoon, right? And
Right.
it's gonna be great. And Dean pops a message on his phone saying,
Oh, gee.
it, I don't know if it was like an older message, but it was like, hey, I had a great time. Can we do that again?
Oh, gee.
And it, again, the stomach drop. And I'm like,
Yeah. You're like, what is
this,
happening?
we
Oh,
just got married. This is supposed to like disappear, right? Like, it's
yeah,
all
exactly.
away.
You promised.
You promised. I don't know. And then, then with, I'm like, couldn't I have like just found this out, all together? It was a very past message. Of course, the devil trying to come back, in our marriage. And it was,
Jeez.
so I did, the jump on, the beat up again.
Oh my
And yeah,
gosh.
but we were living in his mom's basement, we did for like 6 months, and like his family is very family.
Yeah.
And so they were, his sisters were all there upstairs. So I'm the crazy one for years, right? I just, because of my reactions, my responses, but
Yeah.
also that was my hurt and my pain, right?
Right.
The,
Right. Right. Of course.
that, and I respond out loud, where men or him would be like really quiet about it. And so
Mhm.
he was a good person. And because I wanted to respect and honor his reputation, I
Yeah.
never said anything. I never spoke out about it. And I protected him that way. But because of that, there was a lot of like pushing down and pushing in. And I wasn't going to bring it to my family either. I didn't,
Okay.
because of what I would look like too. It was a total like selfish, like very, it was,
Okay.
I wanted to look good too. I wanted to look
Yeah.
like a good marriage. My parents are still married to this day. So there was no way that
Right.
we were going to divorce, right?
Right.
Um, so this, okay, so that incident was that was a past. I don't know how it came up, whatever.
Mhm.
That was done and gone. We move out, we move on with our lives, we have children, but there's still pain, resentment. I'm completely cold toward my husband.
Okay.
There is actual rage and hate towards my husband that starts coming out. Like, you can only surface that for so long, right?
Mhm.
To where that starts coming out. And then I start kind of getting to this, like, I'm getting mentored by women at my church. You were one
Yeah.
of them. And I'm getting healing, right?
Right.
And
Right.
going through this. And then my husband, so then I start being the patient, trying to love him, trying to see him for who he is. But something in my husband turns up, the rage, the
Oh,
hate,
oh my gosh.
the
Okay.
looking down on me, and we're having children at this time. So I'm pregnant with one. I have a
Yeah.
newborn, I have a 2, 3 year old, and it becomes this place. If I didn't know anything else, I would say that was hell,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm
Well,
very,
so then this was I feel like was this how you were kind of abandoning yourself because you were so angry that you were raging, and did you even know why you were angry at this time?
no,
You just had some anger. You were raging towards your husband. You were like, I can't stand him. I'm about to jump on his back and hit him again. Sorry.
I was about,
But Yeah, so I remember when you were telling me this, you were so angry, but you didn't know why. Like you couldn't pinpoint what was happening
No.
until later
Yeah.
when you tell us why. Yeah.
Yeah. I understood that I was angry at him, but it was the total just it was because I was angry at what he did in the past, right?
Okay.
But I had forgiven him. So why was I still angry? Why
Right.
was I still acting this way? So then it was like, was my mom like this? Did I see my
Oh,
mother
okay.
treat my father like this?
Uh-huh.
Um, which my mom wasn't an angry woman. She was a loud woman. And
Okay.
most Hispanics know, if I explain this to them, they'll know like there
Yeah.
was always a sort of like nagging, right?
Okay.
And that's how I became. And it's funny now because I look at videos, like say my daughter would pick up the video, my phone, and start
Uh-huh.
recording. And I'm in the background yelling, and I'm so embarrassed now. Like it's,
Oh,
and I look at that and I'm like, that was me. Like, what was I angry about? What was I like?
right.
I wasn't cherishing the moment, the times. And so I
Yeah.
could see what my husband saw and
Yeah.
then understand in a sense, like why he hated coming home at night. Right. So my
And
husband ended up,
did he tell you that he hated coming
yeah,
home at night? Oh, oh my
yeah,
gosh. Okay.
yeah, yeah. There was a specific time where he ended up taking no, he was working for this agency that works long hours, right? He was paid
Mm-hmm.
salary, and it was the first time he was paid salary. So he didn't understand, or I didn't understand. I had a newborn and a 2.5 year old, and I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I remember calling my husband and saying, you need to get home. I feel like I want to hurt the children.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so desperate, and I felt like it was heard in my voice. And he didn't come home. And I remember thinking to myself, above every thought in my head, thinking, you have to think above this.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it through, get them bathed and showered, and get them in bed. In between that time, oddly, an ex-boyfriend called me, right?
Oh my goodness.
Out of all times.
Such
This,
timing.
yes. And this is how, good versus evil. He
Right.
called me and made all the promises. I will, and he worked a very high rank job, so I knew he wasn't lying.
Right.
I know you. I will raise you and I will raise your daughters. I will,
Oh my
I will give you
gosh.
this and this. And it was like this person, my own husband, is resenting me and rejecting me right now. It doesn't even want to come home when I'm asking him, and I'm being offered this. Like, it was almost
Wow.
that Satan on the in the fasting time of Jesus, like, I will give
Yeah.
you all of this, right?
Right.
Although Jesus knew, like, I was the same way. I was like, but
That's
this
crazy. My
this could
gosh.
be,
That's the
yeah,
thing is we have to be aware when, we're women of faith. So we have to be aware. Like the enemy can be sneaky sometimes, for this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh,
it was very,
this is just the thing
this
Marina will
is
be
just
interested in.
right. I was like, this actually sounds really good right now, and I could
Yeah,
have,
seriously.
who knows.
Somebody save me.
But you know what? This is why when I had a conversation with my husband, I told him, if we tell our story, it will be the payback. It will be the pay.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. We're
Yes.
bringing the dark into the light. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing by telling these stories that people don't talk about because there's other people sitting out there having a hard time and they want to hear how you guys were able to overcome this.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where it kind of starts to turn around. So I started to get a little more serious about my family, my faith, and
Hmm.
my healing, right?
Okay.
And it's so funny when you start thinking that it's going to be about yourself.
Right.
And this is when I believed in the whole, like, self, everything.
Okay.
And I do believe, like, you need to get your time, your vacation, your relaxation. You do.
Yes.
But one thing, and this was heavy for me, one thing that I realized was that if I take care of my husband will take care of his household,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
Because in our faith, it's God, husband, wife, children, right?
Okay.
it's
Okay.
it's the order. And so if my husband could be well enough. It's like the airplane. If you take care of yourself
Yeah. Put
first,
on your
then you take
mask.
care.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
so for my husband, I remember this was, one of the hard years in our marriage. And I was pulling up to the house and I heard in my head, God, I heard him say, call your husband beautiful. And man, I could have flipped that car upside down and been like,
You're
do you
like, no,
see
thank
him?
you.
Do you see what's happening? Like,
Isn't that amazing? Wow.
yeah. He
It
said,
sounds so simple, but you were like, no, thanks.
no, he's
No,
not.
I don't want to.
I don't want to. And I
But did
was like,
you? Did you do it?
my goodness. Not right away, but it was kind of like this contemplation, like, why would you say that? Why would you?
Yes. Yeah.
And it wasn't, and I only had my two girls at the time. I believe I was pregnant with my son. And I did not see the beauty in him. I just could
Right.
not call it out.
Right.
Now I understand what it is to call something into place by
Yes.
the
Yes.
potential or by what you want it, what you want
Right.
to exist, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember going to later on we went to go visit his family, and I was in the kitchen. His mom had happened to come in, this beautiful woman again. And I remember I'm so embarrassed. I probably was complaining about him.
Yeah.
Something had happened. I think it was like the time that I didn't want to take him to the airport because I was tired. I was pregnant. I was mad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. And his mom came into the kitchen and she said, one day when you have a son, you'll understand.
Wow.
And that's all she said. And I was like,
wow.
dare she say that? Right? Just like, oh, I'm beautiful. How dare you?
How dare you?
Make me do that.
Yeah.
Well, then the whole process came to fall on me. Now I had to give of myself. Now there was an expectation that I had to make this thing beautiful, right?
Okay. Okay.
When I had my son, there was this moment where I was like, it was like this aha moment, right? Where I looked at him and I was like, if anybody were to say that this boy of mine, this beautiful boy of mine, was anything other than beautiful, I would jump on their back and
right. Oh, so you started to understand from
started to
seeing it.
understand.
Oh my
I saw it,
gosh.
said, this is my son, Eric, or my husband.
Yeah.
His father sees him as beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to take this moment and really reflect. And it took me a minute. I was like, ugh. And it was really where I had to like bite my tongue. And there was moments where I remember where God would be like,
Oh.
and he like, and
I
it
love
was
those. Do you ever see those pictures, those memes like of like the Holy Spirit covering your mouth, and it's like the Golden Girls or something, you know what I mean? And it's so true because, well, we have a choice, right? That's the
yeah,
thing, is that for people maybe who don't follow God or whatever, but we have a choice. He didn't create robots. So we have a choice to do whatever we want to do. And so, these little things, Marina said, I'm going to try these things because what you were doing wasn't working. So you might as well try calling him beautiful and being nice to him. Let's see if it works.
okay. There was a moment where, and we've apologized to our kids so many times because of the times where we've fought in front of them. And I'd always heard people of wisdom, it's okay to fight in front of your kids, but fight fair and then teach them how to fight, right? We weren't doing that at all. And I sure did not want to teach them how to fight this way, right?
Right.
And so I was like, let's try it. No, this is not it. I remember my husband, I said something in anger, and I was like, well, what would you do without me? And I could tell like he wanted to say, like he was already ready, but in retaliation, he said, I would find another woman or something. Yeah. And I was like, my eyes. And I remember, and it was like a Holy Spirit was like,
yeah.
And I turned around and I remember just crying, just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just shattered me. But I went to the back of the house and I just sat and it was one of those, like, you kind of scrape down the wall and just
Yeah. Yeah.
cry. And it was one of those moments where I was just like, take him away.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
make it
Seriously. Yeah.
go away. And um he came out like 5 minutes later and he apologized.
Wow.
And I remember the Holy Spirit saying, if you let me, I will take care of it. I will get revenge for you. And I just remember after that, there was a whole season of like, just don't.
Covering
And
your mouth. Yeah.
yes. And I teach women that now, that I'm like, let him come in, let him say the things he says, but ask the Holy Spirit for help. Ask God
Right.
to intervene, and he will fight for you. He will go before you.
Right.
That is
Now,
what
of course, we're not condoning abuse in any way,
Oh,
but
no, no,
we
no.
are condoning, yes, we're condoning, a different way to not, not attacking your husband, those kinds of things, because these things, they were able to work them out, and we're still talking about that. But we're not condoning just allowing your husband to treat you like a doormat or abuse you in any way. That's not what we're saying. So I hope you guys hear the message that she is saying, because they're both really wonderful people, and that's the thing,
Mhm.
is that there was a repentance with both of them. So, and that's how there's a difference with abuse. You don't see that. You don't see what's called reciprocity, which is both people, both parties, being repentant or being forgiven or being sorry for what they've done. So
Yeah.
anyway, continue with your story. I
Yeah.
wanted to put a little disclaimer in there.
Yeah. My husband was never, he was never abusive.
Yeah.
Um, he was just mean, and I was mean as well.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. You
And
guys
there are
were you guys were both hurt people hurting each other.
hurt people hurting people.
Yep.
Exactly. And throwing darts and just really making sure that they felt that. Right. And
Yes.
he
Yes.
made sure that I felt that. And even when we talk about that now, he's like, I was going to make sure that you felt that hurt and that pain.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it was, and it worked. It was working. But in that time that the Holy Spirit was teaching me to not respond,
Yeah.
just don't respond. And he would come in, and my husband would say, he says now, he's like, I knew immediately that I would need to apologize. I
Oh.
knew immediately, like, so he was being convicted, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because of my obedience and my new response, it was now like, you know what, I'm going to come in, I'm still going to pray for him. And that was even hard too, because I didn't even want to, like,
Right. Of course.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to say those words, right?
Right.
But there was this one time where I did hear, in one of those hurt moments, I heard, stay and pray, stay and
Okay.
pray.
Stay and
The
pray. Yeah.
difference was that I was staying, but I wasn't praying. So I wasn't
Okay.
lifting him up. I wasn't encouraging him. I wasn't doing the good and honorable things as a wife. It was me, me, me. So
Right.
then we started going to therapy. And it we were talking about it, and there was a lot of emotion. And even the therapist once was like, you cry a lot. I was
Seriously?
like, yes,
Gosh.
like,
It's okay to
you're
cry a lot.
very emotional. I was like, 1 hour is not enough. Like,
It is
1 hour is
not. I
not.
have heard of 2-hour marriage sessions where, like, the first hour, like, it's almost like, or, you kind of need 3 hours. 1 hour for you, 1 hour for him, and then 1 hour for the both of you together. I'm telling you, it's worth it.
Yeah. And the third hour, I need you to side with me. Okay.
Yes,
But,
exactly. You might want to write that down.
but it was it. And she was good.
Yeah.
Um, and she recognized the emotion and recognized that there was like more. So then I
Yeah.
started doing one-on-ones. Um,
Okay.
that time kind of ran out, the funds or whatever, somebody was helping us. So
Okay.
then he started going by himself because he needed it more, right? Um,
Okay.
when he started going by himself, he would talk about it, and he was receiving some healing, but he was going to some really, really deep, dark places that
Wow.
were scary. And as I heard his stories, I became almost like jealous that,
Oh,
like, I was sitting at home with the kids. I was hurt. I was the hurt one. Like, you hurt me. What if
right.
I didn't do anything? I was perfect. Like I didn't do anything
I
wrong,
didn't
right?
do anything wrong. I didn't get on your back and hit you or anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. You were
That
perfect. I get it.
hasn't been true.
That's not even true. Even though we just said it. Not even true.
But it wasn't true.
Yeah, I
Right.
get
But
it.
that's
Yeah,
how
I get
I
it.
wasn't because of my pride and resentment and rejection, all of that. There was
Yes.
just such a denial
Yeah.
that I didn't live a perfect childhood either. But what were those? And I actually had a really great upbringing. I had great parents.
Hmm.
There were things that they weren't taught or that they went through that
Yeah.
obviously like now we know as adults that we've worked through. But I didn't realize that like those few traumatic moments created this rejected, abandoned
Okay.
girl
Yeah.
who had this expectation of life, right?
Right.
And a lot of my friends like had married parents, but we grew up like I mean, I tell people like we grew up in the hood. Like I grew
Okay.
up in the hood, okay.
Okay.
Um, this is my nice side, but my the school that we were zoned for was zoned for a very like ritzy area.
Okay.
So some of us hood kids would go to this very good school, right?
Okay.
And so we weren't wearing the best things and all that. So
Okay.
there was a lot of rejection like
I
happening even in
see.
school,
Yeah.
and me
Right.
trying to be who I wasn't all the time. Like it was
Yeah.
this persona. Well, you do that for so many years, then you start to kind of act like the not you, right?
Right.
It goes and follows you into adulthood. And
Right.
so now you're with this person who you're being this, I would say, fake person,
Right.
and took on a whole different persona, right?
Wow.
So to deal with who I was and
Right.
who God had purposed me to be, right? So
Right.
I'm like digging through all of this like stuff and identity
Like
and
who am I really? All
who
those
am I
things. Yeah.
really? What do I really want to do? Do I really want to be a stay-at-home mom? Is it because my mom did it? Like,
Yeah.
do I want it was like this list of things like, my goodness, I thought I wanted this. I don't want to be this. I thought I was
Right.
this bougie person who loved nice things. I'm really a simple person who just wants to go camping and live up
Right.
in the mountains and eat
Right.
berries all day. Like
Right.
it was this complete uncovering of myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't like Gucci. I actually like Velcro sandals.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's
It
amazing.
was so just this uncovering of myself, and all of my friends and probably you too thought I was like this complete bougie person, and I would come home and take everything off and want to be like in
Yeah.
some boy shorts. And
Right.
that was so in the process of his healing was also an uncovering an identity searching for myself. And it was
Wow.
every time I discovered something new, it was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then he was meeting someone new, right? So then it was like, hey, I'm Marina.
Right.
I don't like shopping.
All
Yeah.
these things that I've told you about for the
All these
last
things.
however many years.
So then for Christmas, when he would buy these things that he thought I was, it was like, I really don't want that. Or who told
Right.
you I
Right.
wanted that? Right.
Right.
And so then it was like years of like, wait, I thought you'd like these things and these things. And so
Right.
there were these years of like, that's what the stay and pray was that
Okay.
the longer I stayed and prayed for him and he went through healing and he went through counseling, not only was I going to discover who I was purposed and
Yes.
then who who he was, the beauty of him that was like uncovering and
Yes.
coming into play. And now I don't want to say like we're like this
Right.
but there was and this was the very last time that he went to this healing, this
Uh-huh.
therapy.
Yeah.
And I remember he called me. Okay, before that,
Yeah.
so he went to go have therapy, right? And my kids and I stayed home. I cooked dinner for them, and I remember this moment, and I remember looking at the clock, and it was this exact time, right? I always do that. And I remember saying, let's dance. And me and the kids were dancing and we were twirling, and it was my
Oh
three
my
little kiddos,
gosh.
right? And my husband calls me um an hour later or so, and he's like sobbing and he's like, you have to pick me up. I cannot move. I was like, where are you? And he's like, I just
Wow.
got out of therapy. I'm in the car, like I cannot move. And then I was like, okay, like I just put the kids to sleep. And he goes, actually, don't worry about it. Like, I'm just going to take a minute. I was like, okay.
Mhm.
I was like, what is going on?
Right.
He gets home and this man is like puffy and just not himself. And
Wow. Wow.
like, but there was a beauty about him.
Mhm.
And we start talking and he gets himself together and he goes, and I was like, what happened? Like, what happened today?
Mhm.
And he goes, I was doing therapy, like the EMDR. And he goes, I saw this picture. There was this vision. And the therapist is saying, like, what do you see? What do you see? And he goes, I'm on this cliff and I see this little boy and I'm pulling him up.
Oh my
And he
gosh.
goes, okay, pull him up, pull him up. And he's like, okay, okay. And he goes, and I'm like literally sweating in real life. And he's like, I can't, I can't. And she goes, pull him up. And he
Wow.
goes, I can't. And he's crying, he's crying. He's like, I can't. She goes, pull it. She like yells, pull him up.
Yeah.
And he finally pulls one last time and he says he gives all of his might and he pulls him up and he grabs the little boy and he's hugging him. And she goes, who is he? And
Yeah.
he looked at him, he goes, oh my God, it's me.
Oh my
And he was
gosh.
hugging this little boy and she goes, that's you as that little boy who lost himself in that time
Oh
that
my
you did. Yeah.
gosh.
And that was the exact time when he had actually gotten to like pornography and he was introduced to that. And he said his life
Oh,
changed forever.
yeah.
And I believe that was like 8 years old.
Wow.
He said his life was different from then on. And and he just remembers having this moment and he was like apologizing to this boy and he was like, I'm sorry I put you through this. I'm sorry that you had to go through this. I'm sorry.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
yeah. And so he goes, and then after that, I saw this vision of you dancing with the kids. And he
Oh
goes,
my
I
gosh.
know. He knew the exact time. And it was the exact time that I had looked at the
That you
clock.
were
Like,
dancing. Oh my
it was,
gosh.
and he goes, I saw that you were free and that you were, and to me, he didn't see it as this, but I saw that that was like, because of what he earned, he got his healing that I
Yes.
got it too.
That's
And
amazing.
to me, that was the goodness of like, God is that like, if I took care of my household, then
Yes.
he would take care of us. And
Right.
so from then on, it wasn't like it was perfect, but it was like this new, it was like we'd stepped into our restoration. He was able
Hmm.
to be this healed person, right? And he wasn't angry anymore. And he didn't resent me. And then I looked at him as like the son. He
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
someone's son and he deserved to be treated well and he deserved to be loved. And
Right.
so that's what I treated him as such. And so it made a difference when I did have a son because I actually understood how
Right.
someone deserved to be treated and how beautiful he actually was.
Hmm.
And just because of what he had experienced as a boy.
Hmm.
And now I know, and now this is why I tell people like you need to go through healing. You need to
Right.
see where those places of trauma happened or what you were introduced to at such a young age, because that
Right.
really does matter and it will
Right.
surface and it will
Right.
affect the people around you.
Hmm.
So I was grateful for that. And and
That's
so this is,
amazing. Oh
yeah.
my
So
gosh, that's amazing. Especially, that's the thing is that going through that healing, but really being willing, that's the part. Look, it sounds scary to have to go dig deep like that, but
yeah,
it's so worth it because you don't realize what little things, you have pinpointed through your healing. I felt a lot of rejection and so I
yeah,
turned out this way and stuff like that. And that is so amazing. I'm so like happy for you guys. And, I know during this time there was a lot of stuff I didn't know, and we're fairly good friends. And so did you ever share? Did you feel like you were going through this alone? I know you had some close friends, but were you sharing any of this with anybody?
yeah. Not really. This is where shame comes in.
Okay.
And my embarrassment, my shame was that I stayed. And
Okay.
how could I let people know that
Yeah.
I stayed with a man that was hurting me in this way, that was um because I didn't mention a lot of some of this, but there
Yeah.
were still women that he was reaching out to, but it was never to have relations with. It was
Okay.
it was like for business and other things. Right.
Right.
But I didn't see the difference in it. I was still hurt. And because of the past, I still saw it as, for me, it felt just like infidelity. Right.
Right.
But so it was a shame of letting other people know that like, I'm so weak for staying in this marriage. Who would do that?
So that's
And
how you were feeling. You were feeling weak.
that's how I was feeling. I was
Yeah.
feeling weak.
Oh
Yeah.
my
And it
gosh.
was, there were two people that I shared maybe some of it with. And of course, like they were like, okay, just, you know, some of it was like, pray for him, cover him. Cause of course they didn't know everything,
Right.
you know, pray, cover him. But I needed a mother, like,
Yeah.
but there was no way. There was no way that I could tell my mother this,
Yeah.
and no way that she could because she would let my father know. My father, I say I'm the favorite. I don't care what all six other my siblings,
Oh,
sisters.
geez. Oh no. They're going to hear this. They're going to let us know.
I say I'm the favorite, but like I'm daddy's girl. Like I'm, you know,
Right.
many of us are, but I'm a daddy's girl. If my dad were to hear about this, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
you know, what would my husband do now hearing about his daughter like that? And so
Right.
it was just all these things that like I tried so hard to cover it up and to make him look good, because we were going to be this family that was like, we were going to come out of this, but we were going to look good doing it. Right. It was about our appearance. And so very few people over time, I let a few others, I really can't remember, but it was a little more of the releasing, and then in therapy that would come out. And then sometimes when I would say say the stories, I don't know if it was like I put like more flavor on it, or maybe like when my husband heard it, he was like, that's not how it, you know. So maybe to him, like my view or my perspective was a little like it I would imagine if he heard it from his daughter, that was like his response. He was like, man, I did not know that I
was
did
that you were feeling that way,
that I
or
was feeling
whatever.
that way. Yeah. And so it was until he was in a more like tender place in his heart to really like understand. And so there were, because even, this was a big part of it. We had a miscarriage with our very first daughter. And I remember there was one time where we had gotten to this really, really big argument. And I remember going into a corner to the other side of the bed and not wanting him to hear me. And I cried so hard. And I ended up having a miscarriage soon after that. And I secretly blamed, I never told him or never told anybody that I blamed him. And I held that against him that, my child was gone because of maybe the chemical imbalance in my body. You know, it was never like killed. It was never a lashing out, but I held that to myself. And that's heavy. Like that's heavy to hold that much against one person,
to
yourself. Right. And I knew how bad that would make someone feel if I told him, but because I kept it to myself, it did come out in therapy once and we kind of went through it, but I feel like it wasn't like healing for me. But so, because of shame, I did hold it and I didn't talk to anybody about it. And that's where, you know, now, because of how we said, like, no, we're going to come back, you know, the enemy tried to come at us, like, we're going to fight back. Like, and because that was my past and that's who I was then, I'm not like that now. Now I want to talk about it. Now, I don't care who hears this, and people need to hear this. And they need to know that like shame will eat you up. Shame will keep you.
You were saying shame and pride, those two, we all deal with that, I think.
It will keep you in a muted place. Where it only affects you. It affects you, and then it'll affect your household, because then you'll see the anger and the rage and the resentment, and that'll come out, and then your children will become affected. And that's where I was like, okay, my daughters were starting to do things and say things the way I would say them. And it was like, ooh, this, and I knew, as my husband and I had, we ran foster care or group homes. And whenever the mothers would come in, because most of them were raised by their mothers were coming and they would open their mouth. And as soon as they would speak, I was like, that sounds just like their child.
Okay.
And so I knew that there was a connection between the behavior of the mother and the
Mhm.
child. And I was like,
Okay.
if I don't get myself together, my children are going to turn out like me then, in that place of
Right.
anger
Right.
and resentment. And I didn't
Hurt.
want that.
Yeah, the hurt and resentment. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's really good. I know this is going to resonate with a lot of people because, and I'm so thankful that you're sharing your story because I think about you didn't really talk to people. And then what if you wouldn't have? Like one day you're just like, oh, Eric and Marina, they're great. Yeah. Okay. But now we know like what it took to get there.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like sit around and hope and cross your fingers. There's work to be done. You know what I mean? There's lots of work to be done in lots of ways. You stayed, you prayed, you humbled yourself. Everybody went to therapy. I mean, there's work to be done.
There's work to be done.
If you, well, that's the thing is if you really want to make a change, there's work to be done because there's that was some big stuff in his past and in your past, right? We all have our things and they affect us in a certain way. We all have become who we are because of our past. So
Yeah.
that was just amazing.
Yeah.
So now you guys are running this nonprofit called Sons and Daughters. You're just
Yeah.
starting that. And so tell me, so that was part of the dream and that's
Yeah.
starting to come. So tell me what's going on with that. What are you doing right now? And then what do you want to do in the future?
Yeah. So we're at the beginning of stages of it. And when it came up again, I knew that like God knew that we were ready. Because we
Mhm.
had to be in a place where we not only loved each other and our family, but had a love for other people and their children. Right.
Yes.
So I started doing Zoom calls with children, and it started with a lot of my friends. I was like, "Hey, get your kids on. Here's the
Right.
Zoom link. You should be there to monitor it. But I just want to talk to these kids and tell them how much Jesus loves them,
Right.
and how to help them in their walk in their life." And some of the topics have been about obedience and identity, and
Yes.
just some of the ways that like how we can walk as people of love, right? And so we
That's
are in
amazing.
about our second month, going into our third month. And so it's been pretty good.
That's
I
so
love,
cool.
I
That's
think
so
that's
cool.
where like kind of my I'd always thought like, what am I going to do when I grow up? Am I going to be like, you know, a a person inside the Barney suit? Like, am I gonna? Because my sisters would always say like, you should have been on the Barney show. Like,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like,
Or
man, did Blippy take my dream? Like, should I have been like him? Like, should I do the female version of
that's
Blippy?
hilarious.
So I kind of knew it was going to be with kids. I really didn't, but I knew that it would. Like, it doesn't surprise me now that I'm working with kids, right?
Right,
And
exactly.
so
Yes.
yeah, so we're going to have a conference coming up in at the end of this year, and so I want to gather all these kids and kind of, after all of these topics that we've talked about, that there's going to
Yes.
be healing and restorations for parents as well. And that's what our goal is
Wow.
with sons and daughters, is that it's a uniting of families, that the parents do their place, or they do their roles, and the kids
Uh-huh.
do their roles, and then teaching them how to help each other, how to talk to each other, how to
That's
work with each
amazing.
other, and bringing families back together, because that's what God did for us, and we want to do the same for other families. So there
That's
will
so
be,
amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So we'll put some of that information in the show notes so you can reach out and of course check our social media. Oh my gosh.
mhm,
That
yeah,
is that is amazing. And see, this is so
yes,
good. I mean,
I
that's the
know.
thing. This is what makes me excited is because you guys worked on your marriage and so now there's a ripple effect of of healing your family and now there's a ripple effect of healing other families and helping other families
Yeah,
to heal. So I'm so proud of you. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Thank
So,
you.
yay.
Yeah,
Mm.
the bigger picture will be transitional homes, group homes,
Okay, that's
um,
amazing.
just
Yes.
anything that has to do with helping and healing families,
Mhm.
kids. There's a way bigger version. I'm the dreamer. My husband's like, I don't see that. I'm like, I got you. I got it.
Right. Yeah.
I've dreamt about
Hey,
this for
we need
years.
the balance.
Yes,
One person's usually the bigger dreamer than the other. So you need the balance.
exactly.
That's really good. But was there anything else you wanted to share today that we didn't talk about?
Um, no, when at the end when we were talking, I thought like,
Yeah.
okay, is that like I hope I didn't embarrass my husband, but what I wanted to say is that like I didn't force my husband to therapy. It took years for him to like
Yes.
want to go. So there was
Yes.
a willingness, right, in
Right.
the
Of
partner.
course.
And
Yes.
I think that there was finally a time where he like realized, okay, I'm out of hand, or we're not in the place where like I envision my family to be,
Yeah.
right? And there's only so much you can say to get your husband to therapy or to realize like how much of a jerk he's being, right? Because you could say that all day, but then
Right.
someone else will tell him and he's like, oh, I'm actually being like this way, right? Like we've talked about
Yes.
there could be that one voice into his life that could make all the difference. And
Right.
there were a few people that did speak into his life. And so I'm grateful for that. But and it came in the perfect time. But there's gotta be a willingness. And when there
Yes.
is a willingness, but also like a support and a love coming from me as like the neck, right, of
Right.
for the household, it
Yes.
makes all the difference. So he could have had a support and a voice, but I would have, if I would have continued being the hurt, resentment, anger person,
Yes.
then it
Yes.
wouldn't have worked out. So I wanted to add that there was a willingness finally, but it
Right.
it's a cycle. It's like this circle, like working
Yes,
together.
it is. Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is you're right because you can't just sit around and or even go completely negative, and so that doesn't encourage them either, especially if they're trying. So yeah, there's
Right.
definitely that's something I definitely learned in therapy about. There's you're either unwilling or unable, or you have to be willing. You have to,
Yeah.
are you willing to do that kind of thing? And so I'm so glad he was willing because
Me
I'm
too.
glad you were too. So well, thank you so much for being here. If any of this resonated with you, there's going to be social media posts. And so please comment on Marina's post. There's going to be reels. There's going to be everything. We're gonna have it all out there. And of course, check out her website and all her information about sons and daughters. And if you want to get involved, guys, I just am so happy she was here. Marina, thank you so much for being here. We
Thank
just
you so much for having
appreciate.
me.
I'm so
I'm
glad
so
you were
happy for
here.
what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we will talk to you next time.
All
See you
right.
then.
Bye.
Bye.